I messed it up pretty bad. I probably shouldn't post this on the internet. Who knew? Certainly not me. Girl, what are you doing? Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new here. I'm back. I'm so excited to be back. It's been about 3 months since I've recorded. I did my last sit down and talk to the camera video back in April, and then I haven't really recorded anything since. I did record this video once, and I did not have audio. So I am re-recording this video. Today, I wanted to do a look back on all of my past projects. I thought it'd be really fun to just see where I started and all of the things that I've learned over the past 4 years. And I'll be sharing some footage from projects that I'd never shared before, including the very first home project that I ever worked on back in 2020. Before I get started, if you wouldn't mind, check to make sure you are subscribed to my channel. I'd love to have you here. And give this video a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, all of the usual things, and let's get into it. There was a high-pitched noise throughout my entire video, and I spent days adjusting my audio to try to get it to sound decent, but there are still parts in the video where my audio sounds like I'm underwater, and it is worse for headphone listeners, so I apologize for that. I didn't want to re-record this a third time because I felt my commentary would start to sound really forced, and I definitely did not want that. Since recording this, I have fixed my camera, so the audio will hopefully stay fixed for future videos, but I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, and thank you for sticking around to watch this video. So I want to do a little life update for anybody who maybe doesn't follow me on Instagram. If you don't care about this life update and want to just get into the video, either skip to the time that I have on the screen here or skip to the next chapter. I should have everything chaptered out on the video. Back in May, I had my baby early May, and then at the end of the month, like 2 weeks later, I had my gallbladder removed in an emergency removal where I was supposed to have it planned for later in the year. And then 2 days later, I was back in the hospital with pancreatitis from having said gallbladder removed. So I spent pretty much half of May in the hospital, which now looking back, I'm glad that it happened the way that it did. That means that I had all that time to recover, but that is why all my videos are late, is because I planned to edit all of this at the end of May, and here we are now in July, and I am just now getting to record it. It was a nice little break, but I'm happy to be back, and I am diving full force into projects as I can, which means that I'm currently working on the primary bedroom, and then later this year, I will be focused on updating the living room. So make sure to stay tuned for all of that, and I'm really happy to finally be diving back into projects and into creating content. I also want to say a huge thank you to those of you who have stayed subscribed over the last few months, even though I have not put out content. I really appreciate you being here and supporting the channel. This video is brought to you by the side of my old house. I did not have any tripods at the time, and this was the first ever project that I did on our house in 2020. I want to say the day after we moved in, Jared and I purchased a drill, and the first thing that I did was remove this awful plexiglass that was around the porch area. It was so freaking hot. I imagine that they put the plexiglass there for the winter time, but in the summertime, whenever we had moved in, it was like stifling. It was so bad, and it also looked pretty ugly. So immediately I removed the plexiglass. I'm also terrified of bugs. I don't do creepy crawlies very well. So here you can see me trying to figure out what to do about standing in what would be a pit of creepy crawlies. I was terrified of putting drill bits into the drill at first, and I walked over to Jared and I was like, hey, can you put this drill bit in for me? It came out. And he told me, like, you're going to have to learn how to put a drill bit into the drill. Like, I'm not going to do this for you every time. But he did put the drill bit in for me at that time. And I've since learned to not be afraid of using drill bits. This plexiglass was heavy. I don't know why I thought that plexiglass wouldn't be as heavy as it was, but each panel was just so freaking heavy. It was insane, and it was so hard to move these because they were floppy too. Once I removed all that plexiglass though, it felt so much better under that porch. We didn't really use it too terribly much for like sitting out, but it was really nice to have that porch available and not completely closed in anymore. Man, this was a good color. I believe this color was called Salty Dog by Sherwin-Williams. This bedroom was the first time I ever painted with dark paint. I had never really painted a full room before. Jared had painted one of our previous apartments, but I've never painted a room by myself. And deciding that a dark blue was the first color that I was ever going to paint by myself was quite a choice, because dark colors, you need like 3 coats, and we were waiting to move our bed into this space until after I was done doing a makeover, and it just took forever. But it turned out really nice for my first room. I repainted and I did the baseboard. I removed the mirror doors off the closet and I made over this little space. I added a rod to that empty cubby, and I don't know why I actually redid all of the trim in this room. There was one little spot by the door here that I guess they just ran out of trim, so they didn't go all the way down to the floor, which is lazy, but I guess they said good enough. So maybe that's why I redid all of the trim. But looking back, I'm like, I should have just painted it white to get rid of that yellow hue that I hated. There was just so much yellow wood in this house, and it drove me nuts because I don't like the golden stain. I'm not a fan of the golden stain color. I prefer darker stains, or if I have to choose between yellow and red, I'd rather it lean more red in stain color than more yellow in stain color. There were a lot of DIY firsts for me. This was my first floating shelf. The first time I ever worked with a nail gun. I actually rented a nail gun to do all the trim in the room. And I built this dresser, which it needed a lot more work. But it was the first thing I ever built, and I'm very proud of the work that I had done. So let's talk about that. After I purchased the drill, I then moved on to the circular saw, which I was terrified of. And to be honest, I'm still quite terrified of a circular saw. I'd much rather like a table saw or something. But I built an entire dresser using a circular saw, a Craig jig, and a drill. So I made it work, I guess. But this is the first time I ever used a circular saw, and my first cut with a circular saw.
First cut! Ah, how exciting!
This top was so wobbly. Everything about this was so wobbly. I also had no idea about the different types of wood. I did not know that different plywoods existed. For instance, I knew that I needed 1/2-inch plywood and I needed 1/4-inch plywood for my dresser. For the previous YouTube video that I had watched on how to build a dresser, those were the 2 types of wood that I needed. So I went on down to Home Depot and I got 1/4-inch ply and 1/2-inch ply. And I'm like, I'm going to do the cheapest that I can find, which is not at all made for building furniture. It's made for more so if you're doing like a subfloor. They make far prettier woods. So you have like Baltic birch is really good for plywood, or I've made things out of maple plywood before. All kinds of other plywoods that I could have used and I had no idea about. So that's mistake number 1 for this dresser that I wish I would have known before working on the dresser.
We're square-ish.
Square-ish.
I mean,
if you're building a drawer and you expect it to move, square-ish does not work. And that right there was probably my biggest problem.
I know it'll be a problem.
It will be.
But we're ish.
It was.
So, we'll see. Don't know how to make drawers. I don't know how to measure for them. I know that you have to take into account the slides, the thickness of the wood on both sides, and then obviously the drawers, or the doors. So I think I'm just gonna give it a shot and try my best.
That's my life motto. Give it a shot and try my best.
Oh, we're snug. Oh shoot, we're off track. Okay. 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 Are we gonna fit? Oh, we're tight. Do we fit?
Eventually, I was able to kind of shove the drawers and make them work. It was not the best, and every time you would go to like open the drawers, they were definitely not very easy to open and close. These are soft close drawer slides. They were not soft close drawers. They were push as hard as you possibly can to get it back into this wonky box kind of drawers. Plus, they were super heavy, like really freaking heavy.
All right, at what point am I just gonna go to IKEA? At what point?
But I did not go to IKEA to buy a dresser, so at least I finished my project. All in all, I really loved the design that I was going for, and I made this all again with a circular saw, so kudos to me there. But other than the actual function of the dresser, a few things that I wish I would have done. That second panel, so the top right panel, I wish I would have cut the wood down to where it looked like the grain was flowing from left to right. This is just something that now that I've done woodworking for 4 years, I'm more aware of, and I take notice of the grain pattern and how that flows. Another thing that I would have done is sanded off that sticker that was obviously on the plywood, and I think that I used this side because it was pretty, but all of that sticker glue, I would have sanded that off. That's not pretty at all, but I did love the little slat designs that I did. I think those were really cool. And another thing that I wish I knew then is the importance of a finish coat, like a top coat. I did not put any sort of poly or lacquer or finish on the raw wood. It was just raw wood for the year that we lived there and that we owned this dresser. Also, I attached the fronts with a screw. You can kind of see it here on the top left, but 2 of the dressers still had a screw pointing out. So every time you'd go to pull the drawer, you would get scratched by a screw, which was very uncomfortable. And there were stairs. Again, just hated the fact that everything was so golden and yellow in the house. So I decided to spray paint the stair rails, and I thought that I did a good job protecting everything. But what I did not realize is that whenever you take forced air and you blow a piece of plastic with said forced air, you'll get the plastic blowing away, which makes sense. So although I thought I was protecting our floor and our stairs from white paint, I did not do a very good job of that. And while the rails themselves actually did look pretty good, the stairs stayed covered in paint the entire time that we were there, and I apologize to the people who purchased the house after us that had to either replace the stairs or clean the white paint off because that paint stayed there for forever. But the gel stain that I used for the rails looked really good.
So you'll see that I only did 1 layer of MDF. If you want a thicker countertop, you can do more. But in order to save some funds, I went ahead and cut down some pieces to size for the sides and the front and back.
The way that I did the island top really makes sense to me still, not wasting a second piece. The problem is sanding. And throughout all of these projects, one of the things that I've learned over the years is how important sanding truly is to the final result of your project. So if I'm telling myself now what I would have done then, I should have filled the sides with some sort of maybe Bondo and made sure that the sides of the top were nice and smooth before going in and painting. And then I wouldn't have had these really ugly lines that I ended up having in the end. Oh, epoxy. This was my first time working with epoxy. It's not my favorite medium to work in. It's not my least favorite medium to work in. And I really did love the marble look. However, I messed it up pretty bad. I really thought that the black pigment for the epoxy would cover all of these little chips that were not getting covered by the paint that was provided. Basically, what happened was that the paint did not adhere to any of the caulk that was between the seam of the countertop and the backsplash. So I ended up with chipped looking paint. And I tried painting it. I remember trying to paint it like 3 or 4 times and it just would not adhere properly. So I was like, oh, okay, well, the black in the epoxy will cover the black in this area. I'll just make sure to put like veining and everything there. And that was not the case. These never covered up. The epoxy itself is clear and the black pigment is translucent. So it just looked like a hot mess. And in the words of John Mayer, gravity is working against me. And boy, gravity sure did bring me down on this project. all of that backsplash area, all of the veining just melted down. It looked like a huge waterfall. That was not the look that I was going for. But with this kitchen, I didn't want to remove the backsplash because I didn't want to break anything. I wasn't laying new tiles, and I didn't want to buy new countertops because that was not in the budget at the time. So instead, I ended up with this waterfall look because I didn't want to break the backsplash area. It just wasn't cute. Where you see me sanding everything down, I added a top finish to the epoxy that was supposed to make it more heat resistant. And I guess maybe the epoxy was tacky, or I don't know. I did something incorrectly here, and it made my countertops bubbly, and it just sucked. It sucked so bad because at least the countertops looked decent before I put this on, and then they looked bad and bubbly. And we kept them like that. I tried to go back in with like just a clear epoxy and do a flood top coat, but really nothing was able to save these countertops. Had we lived there longer, we definitely would have replaced the countertops. I learned 3 very valuable lessons while working on the cabinets for the kitchen. First of all, protect your lungs. Because I did not. I thought that working out in the garage and using chemical stripper would be fine without any sort of mask. Boy, was I wrong. I felt like my lungs were on fire for at least 4 days afterwards. I was like, this is the end for me. I have screwed up. I am toasted. My poor lungs, they were just on fire. So please protect your lungs, protect your eyes, put your hair up, all the things whenever it comes to PPE and working safely. The next thing I learned is that the directions on the paint can are actually there for a reason, and you should not try to spray paint whenever it's 20 degrees Fahrenheit in your garage. Who knew? Certainly not me. All of the paint just turned out clumpy. I would have been better off rolling it, or if I just moved to the basement, if I did all of this in the basement rather than doing it in the garage, it would have just turned out so much better. In the end, the finished result actually looked pretty good, but definitely follow the directions on the paint can. And lastly, I learned that apparently no matter how much I mask things off, I'm still going to make a mess. I should have used something completely different to mask off these cabinet boxes, but I didn't. And if I ever do cabinets again, I know how I'm going to prep it. And I know that I would not use the paint sprayer inside. I'd probably just roll paint for the cabinet boxes.
Painting the door was a very last second decision, but honestly, it worked and it feels like it needed it. I spray painted it super quickly with just a little bit of paint that I had left in the can because Jared was gone and I wanted that initial, oh my gosh, we have a black door, to set in whenever he got back from the gym. But once he did get home, I went to the store, got a new can of paint, and made sure that everything was nice and smooth and painted well and not splotchy at all.
Even by the fact that that door needed to be spray painted black, it just looked so much better. He also loved that the door was painted black, so this was a win. I just knew that if he saw me doing it at the time, he'd be like, what are you doing? Why are you painting our door black? My first venture into plumbing that made me believe that I could completely redo a bathroom, which I did redo a bathroom, but I was so excited that I changed this faucet out and there were no leaks. This was a huge highlight. And honestly, I'm still pretty proud of it, even though I've done far bigger projects since this. All in all, I did really love this color. I loved the way that the kitchen looked. I loved the idea that I had in my mind. And I thought that it made a difference in the aesthetic of the downstairs area of our old house. Okay, this is a girl, what are you doing moment for me because, girl, what are you doing? I'm not going to harp on this too much. There's a lot wrong with this, but I'm just going to say that I should have just used a miter saw from the beginning to cut these legs. That's all. That's the notes. This might be a hot topic, but I really don't like the jigsaw. I would prefer using my scroll saw for literally everything before trying to use a jigsaw. And I know a jigsaw has its time and place, but I just don't like them.
I moved on to staining and I promptly threw it on the ground. So yeah, don't do that.
Would not recommend throwing all of your stain on the ground. That stain stayed there for the life of us living in the house and beyond. I wish I would have had like a pressure washer or something at the time. That probably would have helped remove the stain, but it just stayed there forever. People I really did enjoy. I was starting to get better at making projects. I was starting to feel more comfortable with making furniture. Obviously, this is not a fine piece of furniture. I would never sell something like this, but I was getting more comfortable. Again, I would have sanded it more. I would have finished it with some sort of a poly or a lacquer. But for a quick project that I used to decorate for Christmas, it worked out really well. I actually made this table because it was 2020 and we weren't going home for Christmas. So I surprised Jared by decorating our house with a little Christmas village for the holidays, and I needed a place to put it because we didn't have a dining table at the time, and so I just made this table really quick around Thanksgiving so that way I could decorate for Christmas, and it turned out really cute. This workbench was my first venture into digging in the trash. I saw that our neighbors threw out this kid bed frame that was all wood, and I had looked at it out of our window for like 2 days before I decided to go get it. So I waited until it was dark outside one night, and like a thief in the night, I went over to their house and I grabbed this and I brought it back over to our garage. Little did I know at the time that like that's totally fine and you can take people's trash. I did not feel comfortable with that at the time, nor did I really know what the rules were around this, but I turned it into a workbench. And so the only wood that I purchased for this particular workbench was the top and the bottom section. I purchased some Baltic birch plywood and made a cute little tabletop out of an old bed frame and some new plywood. I really did like this workbench. I thought I did a really good job on it. It did stay at our old house. I do wonder if they got rid of it or if they kept it. They probably threw it out. I don't think I actually shared this desk build at all on Instagram or YouTube. I know I didn't share it over here, but I don't think I shared it on Instagram either. I've shared pictures of the desk, but this is a project that I finally really started feeling more comfortable with woodworking. The dresser made me fall in love with the process and fall in love with woodworking, but this is where I really felt like I was starting to get decent. I love a good long Bessie clamp. Nothing like them. I've still to this day never finished this desk, and I actually don't think I ever will with the original plan that I had. At the old house, I had an office where I was going to make this L-shaped desk, a huge L-shaped desk, and I only finished half of the desk, which is what I'm using here right now. I love it, and it's held up over the years. I think it's been 2 or 3 years now since I've built this desk, and I do have the other half in the garage still, but I don't think I'm ever going to finish that or make that into the desk again. I've had jobs that required multiple monitors for me to work, as well as areas to take notes, so the idea of having a huge desk really made sense at the time, but now it's not as necessary. Plus, whenever I make the study into an actual office area, I'm sure I'm going to have some sort of idea as to a desk that I'd like to make, or maybe some sort of desk that I'd like to try to find instead. But for now, this desk serves its purpose. This stain is my favorite stain in the whole wide world. It's just this beautiful dark stain. I think it was discontinued like right after I purchased it for the desk, but it's so beautiful. If there was one stain color that I would absolutely love to have the floors in this house, it would be this stain color right here. I think it's called dark chocolate truffle. It's just so gorgeous. It's a beautiful dark stain and I love it. I would put it on everything. The scroll saw is my absolute favorite tool. It is so versatile. You can do so much with it. It's tiny but mighty, and it's wonderful. I really love it, and I really need to get back into it, but I have more important projects to work on than working with the scroll saw. So I'm kind of picking my battles for timing right now, but man, I do love the scroll saw. My first project that I did on this was a night light. This drawing is something that I designed for a design class in college. And I was like, oh, well, this seems intricate enough to practice on the scroll saw. That's what I did there. I made these cute little ghosties. Oh my gosh, they were so precious. I love these little ghosts so much. I wish that I would have sealed them properly. Again, I wish I would have sealed them properly so that way I could have kept them and moved them to this house. And then this cute little mobile piece that I made for Priscilla and Luke, their first daughter. I just thought that this was precious. This is the first time I used the laser that I have currently. I don't do too many laser projects, primarily because technology and I do not get along. But I broke out the laser and figured out how to use it just so that I could make this particular piece right here. And I just loved how it turned out. I thought it was so cute. This is probably still one of my favorite pieces that I've made. This Do Great Things is the very first sign that I made. It looks like garbage in my personal opinion, but it's good to see where I started and where I am now. When Jared was in grad school, anytime he'd go to study, I tell him, I love you, do great things. And even now that he's well out of grad school and anytime he goes to work, same thing. I love you, do great things. And the sign is in his gym. I would love to redo it and do another one, but I don't think he would ever let me get rid of this one. He loves it, so that's all that matters. In 2023, I competed in 2 different competitions. The first one was the Maker Collab competition, and then the Maker's Challenge competition for Scroll Saw. So these are the 2 items that I made. The first one is the Baby You Could Chive My Car burger, as well as the burger plate. I made that part of it, and my partner for the collab, Tracy, she made the burger sign that's right next to it. She came over and we used my laser to laser the background, but she did an absolutely stunning job on the Burger of the Day sign. And I made this burger out of MDF clay and epoxy. It was a fun project. I learned a lot. I did a lot of carving. I learned that MDF on the skin is truly just awful. It feels horrible. But it was a fun project, and my aunt now owns the Baby You Can Chive My Car burger. And then the other piece that I made for the Maker's Challenge is a plate of spaghetti shaped as a Pac-Man ghost. This is still available for sale. If you are interested, please send me a DM on Instagram or send me an email at dobbsdesignco.com and we can get it figured out. I will give you free shipping if you are interested in this sign. This is the most pieces that I've ever cut on a scroll saw for a project. I think it turned out pretty well. I made this piece for the 2023 Maker Camp Maker Swap that's hosted by the Working Cans podcast. The idea behind this piece was a hand holding stick balloons. My buddy Mike actually pushed me creatively to get to this idea. I had a similar idea for another project and he and I were talking about it and I was like, I've got this idea, and he said, go for it. And this is what my brain came up with. And I'm really thankful for friends who push me creatively and that I'm able to have those conversations with, because truly I think this is the best thing I've ever made with my hands. I love it. And this is one of Jared's favorite pieces that I've made as well. And the last thing that I have in my scroll saw section here is the Clement sign. This is something that I finished in late November, early December, right before I left to go to Louisiana last year. This is my cousin's wedding sign that I decided to make for them for a gift. It's pretty cool to see how far I came from that first Do Great Things sign all the way to the Clement sign. I want to say theirs is the 5th sign that I've made, or maybe the 6th. I think it's the 5th. Pretty cool to see. And by this point, I learned the importance of sanding properly and grain continuation in the wood. So all of the grain for the, and then for the numbers, it all flows smoothly. It's kind of hard to tell here, but I used the same sections of the walnut in order to make these. This bathroom, boy oh boy, this bathroom. I hated this bathroom from the second that we saw the house, and I knew that eventually I'd want to do a makeover, and I had no idea how to do it or what to do. But I did remove that metal and glass sliding door thing a few days after we moved into the house, and then eventually the very last project that I did on this house was completely gut and renovate this bathroom. I was so ready for this. I was so nervous about all of this because once you make a hole in the wall, then you really got to commit to it. I certainly did not have the right tools for the job. So now that I have a line that I can cut, I'm going to go ahead and just score the drywall with a knife. I wish I had better tools at this moment, but this is what I've got. I've got a knife
and hopefully I can just score the drywall and start pulling everything off, so the drywall and the tile, and I won't have to keep like banging and breaking the tile. So
I think it's really funny that I thought I was going to be able to do anything in this bathroom with this knife right here. I think I saw a video that was talking about how that if you get to the drywall layer after you've removed some tiles, that you can just cut the drywall and then be able to remove in chunks rather than constantly breaking up drywall. Don't know how I thought I was going to do that with this knife, but certainly could not. And then the following day, I actually went and purchased an angle grinder so that way I could properly demo this bathroom out. This top piece right here over the shower, I have no idea why it was there. It was just an empty out section, but it made the bathroom feel so much smaller because it made the ceiling feel lower. So I did decide to remove this section. I really wish that I would have known how easy soldering is. I feel like, yes, it's definitely more complicated than working with PEX, but I had been told by a couple of friends that I should definitely update my copper piping to PEX so that way it's easier to work with. And I ended up having to use 4 different shower systems before finding one that worked. The first one was just like a garbage system. It was cheap, even though I paid a lot of money for it. The second one, user error installing it. I don't remember exactly what happened, but like it just constantly kept leaking. The third one was missing a part whenever I ordered it. And then finally, the fourth one I was able to install properly and actually get it in place. But this really sucked. I was so defeated because it really took me like a month to figure out just the shower itself. And we only had one shower in the house at the time, so we were showering at the gym, and Jared was not happy with me for taking so long to renovate this bathroom. But I had never done any of it before, and before he knew it, we were down to studs. I definitely don't recommend a full bathroom renovation if you don't know what you're doing whenever you only have one shower, but I did it. It turned out really great. I learned a lot from it. I don't know if I should be posting this on the internet, but I'm posting it here and hoping for the best. Honestly, a plumber came by and saw everything, and he said that it looked good, so I'm comfortable with that. I did a good job. This bathroom is also the first time that I did any sort of drywall work, and my biggest mistake with the drywall work is that I put one layer of mud and let it dry overnight before I taped anything, because that's what I thought you were supposed to do. Oh boy. I was going for a nice level 5 smooth wall, and I ended with very textured walls. I could not get this smooth. I used so much mud. I think I went through 3 of the 5-gallon buckets of mud in this one bathroom, which is, again, something I'm sure I'm going to get comments on because, like, that was a lot. But doing this right here and learning about drywall work is what gave me the courage to actually tackle this house. Months ago, I had somebody comment on one of my walkthrough videos for this house say, the walkthrough looks so overwhelming. You can obviously tell that the homeowner did not care for the house. How could you tell if it was too much work for you? How could you really see it? And had I not done any work in this bathroom, had I not almost completely gutted this bathroom and started from the studs, I would not have had the confidence to think that I could work on this house. And actually, we probably never would have closed on this house because before we could close, I had to come in and actually drywall one of the walls so that way we could close on the house. We did a lot of work on this house before we could even own it. And obviously, that's a huge risk, but it did work out for us in the end, thankfully. But this bathroom is what I guess gave me the audacity.
Okay. You can do this. Got this. Good consistency, I think.
It's not a good consistency.
Maybe not. That is for sure gonna fight gravity.
It would have.
Alright, I'm gonna phone a friend. Let's see.
I ended up calling my cousin to ask her to see the proper mortar mixture that I needed, and she definitely was like, yeah, that's way too thin.
I think you're supposed to, like, butter it like bread. or something. What am I doing? Oh, Jesus. This is not level. There's no friggin' way this is level. No way.
I did eventually get that one tile level. I was so proud of myself for these little corners. Tiling is not a very forgiving job. I'm happy to have had the experience. It's not my favorite. I don't know that I would want to do it regularly. I would do it again for sure, but I don't know that I would want to do it regularly. I love this bathroom. I think it turned out so cute. The light that we had in here was really cool. And unfortunately, we moved like just a couple months right after I finished this one. Grouting. I enjoyed grouting. That was my favorite part of tiling. An accent wall in this bathroom. It just turned out so cute. I love this bathroom. That's all I've got for today. I really enjoyed looking down memory lane, and I hope you did too. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and stay tuned for all the projects that I've got upcoming. I'm currently working in the primary bedroom, so there's going to be a lot of content coming from that. And then I will be getting started in the living room. So please make sure to hit the subscribe button. I'd love to have you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all real soon. Bye, guys.